Ms. Janet Ang.
One of the key sources of CO2 emission is road transportation. Borneo Motor CEO Jasmine Wong shared with me the results of a study they have done internally, which shows that internal combustion engine vehicles, ICE, emits 50% and 25% more CO2 than electric vehicles and hybrid electric vehicles, respectively. Tackling the issue of having cleaner energy vehicles on our roads is of great urgency. Mr. Speaker, let me start by stating my support for the LTA Amendment Bill. The planning and deployment of EVs involves different government agencies, and a coordinated approach to the design of policies and regulation, as well as stakeholder engagement, is critical. Industry players like Borneo Motors and members of the European Chamber's Smart Mobility Committee are all supportive of the Singapore Green Plan 2030 and look forward to collaborating with government and stakeholders in the ecosystem to achieve the goals set. For today, allow me to highlight three broad themes which will need further dialogue and consultation amongst the stakeholders and government. The first broad theme is around the EV charging infrastructure. The first issue around EV charging infrastructure is the choice of standards. The choice of charging standards will have an island-wide infrastructure impact. It's good to know that the government has already identified a TR25 committee, put together such a team to look into this. Now, of course, globally, there is a flurry of activities in the industry to come up with the technology that will become the industry standard. The jury is still out. And there is also the related issue of fast charging or slow charging. The variance between fast and slow charging can range between 20 minutes to 7 to 8 hours. And the cost of fast charging is estimated to be 30 times the cost of a 10 to 12K slow charging station. How will Singapore decide on the standard to be used? How will Singapore manage the risks involved with this big bet, depending on how battery technologies advance or if other technologies disrupt, for example, hydrogen? A second issue around EV charging infrastructure is the accessibility of chargers, which is a key factor affecting the rate of adoption of EVs. During COS, Minister of Transport has announced that by 2030, it is planned that there will be 60,000 EV charging points available across the island. What is the planned rollout of these charging points? Will EV charging be considered a national infrastructure, or will the government leave it to private sector to decide based on their business models? What will be the design point for the charging network balancing speed, cost, coverage, convenience, and load on the grid? HDB car parks will be a major real estate for charging points. So will HDB fund the rollout of the charging infrastructure? And how does LTA plan to encourage existing condominiums to put in charging stations, since MCST will have to fund the capital costs? Now, industry players supports a more extensive slow charging network, complemented by fast charging network for top-up and emergency. The slow charging network can be shared or specific to each EV. The shared model will require consumer acceptance of some level of inconvenience. So imagine having to, drive your EV to a HDB car park, maybe 3 MRT stations away, and then wait for your car to get charged up and then bring it home. So those are the inconveniences that may appear. Now, the industry is exploring an option for the installation of the slow chargers to be provided as part of the purchase of the EV, similar to how chargers come with our smartphones today. Does this mean Singapore may need to consider the approach in Japan, where one can buy a car only when one owns a parking lot? If that is so, then the EV charging station is individually owned, which also has the benefit of the charging taking place off-peak and not strain the electric grid. Is it, however, wasteful, since each EV probably only needs to be charged a couple of times a week at most? The dilemma is how best to balance cost, convenience, and social acceptance when deciding between all these options. A third issue around EV charging infrastructure is how to handle range anxiety. With the average driving distance being 50 km a day, one charge can probably hold up for 3 to 4 days. That said, access to fast charging is still needed in the event of emergencies. In speaking with several mall developers, many are already fitting up a few EV-ready fast charging stations. There are, however, questions around how many lots to provide optimally and the sharing of these lots by EV drivers. Perhaps an intelligent app can help to alert the driver that his or her EV is fully charged, and higher parking charges will kick in thereafter if the car is not moved. This is but one form of behavior-changing tactics that could be considered. To help accelerate provision of fast charging stations, will the government consider EV lots to be included in the URA's existing CSFS or Community Sports Facility Scheme, which allow GFA exemptions? Such carrots should help to make fast charging stations more accessible at malls, office buildings, and new developments. Existing petrol stations and public car parks are also, of course, potential fast charging sites. Now, the second broad theme is around reskilling the mechanics and technicians in the workshops. Singapore needs an EV-ready skilled workforce. It's exciting that MTI and EDB have attracted Hyundai Motors to set up their electric car manufacturing in Singapore. I'm sure it will be a highly automated facility, but still, our Singapore workforce needs to be systematically upskilled to support electrification across all the OEM brands, from manufacturing, service, after sales, and to ensure that our workers are future-proof. There are new opportunities for our workers in this industry as the EV works on digitalization, and there will be new digital jobs in the auto industry. We hope that the skills and jobs framework in the new clean energy for the auto industry can be in place early to help current workers upskill and next-gen workers be future-ready. The industry is ready to collaborate with our IHLs, SSG, and WSG. Now, the third broad theme is around hybrid being the low-hanging fruit to decarbonizing on our roads. While EVs offer the largest reduction in CO2 footprint, drivers could take a while to warm up making their first EV purchase. I must declare I do drive a hybrid. Hybrid presents the lowest hanging fruit to decarbonizing our transportation. Hybrid's CO2 emission reduction of 25% compared to an ICE is considerable. Adoption of hybrid is independent of charging infrastructure, and the psychological barriers for purchase are significantly lower. To encourage hybrid adoption alongside EV adoption, industry has a suggestion for LTA to review the COE CAT classification for hybrid. I'm told that there are best-in-class HEV powertrains, which uses a 1.8-liter engine to achieve remarkable CO2 emissions. Decarbonizing should not come with a premium COE or a premium road tax. Now, one other point I would like to bring up is how used cars will be treated. As we pursue the transition to cleaner energy vehicles with the various policies for new vehicle registration, what regulatory changes will the government be making with regards to used cars? Will the same penalty policies for C1 and C2 banding guidelines for new cars be applied for used cars if the emission test results at point of COE renewal fail to meet the mark? In conclusion, the industry supports the Singapore Green Plan 2030 move to cleaner energy transportation. Singapore is not an early adopter, and so there are many best practices and lessons learned in other cities we can learn from and adapt quickly for our situation. Industry suggests for the government to use the many levers at its disposal, namely car taxes, COE quotas and road taxes, grants, rebates, etc., as both sticks and carrots to help accelerate cleaner energy vehicles adoption, both hybrid and EV. And the time to act is now. The industry looks forward to participating in MOT and LTA's industry consultation to discuss the above issues amongst others and move the agenda into high gear. Notwithstanding the issues and the questions raised, Mr. Speaker, I support the bill. Thank you.